Did you push the button? Just let me know when it started recording. All right, I see the red dot. All righty, so let's go ahead and get started. So today I'm going to be talking about how to create or how to cultivate anxiety resilience in your children. Today what we're going to be focusing on is first we have to define anxiety, what it is, what it really looks like. Otherwise, how do we talk about how to cultivate resilience to something we maybe don't know exactly what it is? So that's what we'll start with. We're going to talk about what increases anxiety, what makes anxiety worse, what the antidote to anxiety is, what makes anxiety go away, how you can better regulate anxiety, and then your role in all of that, how you can help to foster this anxiety resilience in your children as you raise them. A little bit more about me and why I'm presenting on this topic. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I've been working with the whole family since 2010. My main niche is working with children as well as couples. So kind of looking at the whole family system. So I've been working a lot with couples and how they parent, as well as working with the children themselves. In 2016, I started JCACounseling. And ever since then, we've been growing, and now we're 26 counselors strong. And now I serve more as the mentor to those counselors. My main niche has been working with children who go through anxiety or depression. And when COVID hit, we wanted to reach the community more. Community outreach is a really important facet of our practice. And so we started the YouTube channel to be able to offer no-cost mental health education to the community. And so we have a depression series. We have how to talk to your kids about anxiety, an anxiety series. We do coping skills, all kinds of topics we cover. And so that's our handle if you want to check out our YouTube channel. Also, I'm going to be referencing some of our videos that you can go into more detail of some of our slides as we go along. Alrighty, and this is how you can reach me, my direct email address, our website, as well as some of the handles if you want to follow some of the information that we put out, free mental health education every week. Okay, so let's start with what is anxiety. So the DSM is a really thick, big book that defines every single mental health disorder. And anxiety itself is a huge chapter, is a huge section of the whole book. And it covers panic attacks, phobias, general anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, obsession type of disorders like OCD, and agoraphobia, fear of leaving your home. But ultimately, in the fact that it covers so many different facets, is anxiety can look very different in different situations. But what we're going to be covering more today is more of the general anxiety. So cortisol is our stress hormone. Cortisol is a hormone that we all need to function and live. It wakes us up in the morning. It makes us feel productive at healthy levels. But when cortisol goes too high, we start having chronic anxiety and stress. And then we have melatonin that our body starts to produce at night. And that's what helps us go to sleep and wind down for the night. And then cortisol starts to produce in the morning, and that wakes us up and gets us feeling more productive. General anxiety is when your cortisol levels are too high, your body's arousal level is too high, and then you're reacting to everything. Expectations, what do I need to do for school? Parenting, diet of my children and me. What do people think of me? And am I a good friend? Am I being a good parent? The what if, the ruminating, it's on everything. And with general anxiety, it kind of goes across the board. So it's hard to notice because it's just your way of being. And so some of the skills we'll be talking about is how to lower that anxiety, how to get to more of a healthier state where we feel productive, but we also feel in control. And then there's a big difference between stress and anxiety. Anxiety is the medical side. It's our cortisol too high. It's our brain producing too much of a hormone. Stress is, I have a big test coming up. I'm nervous about that, and I'm motivated to study. And once the stressor is gone, the stress I have about it goes away as well. It's situational. It's based on different things that come at you at different times. And anxiety is a chronic state, a medical chronic state of your body being too high in arousal all the time. That's why it's hard to sleep, because your cortisol levels are even high overnight. That's why we sit there and are ruminating at night trying to go to bed. With anxiety being medical, there is medication that can be helpful. I like to avoid medication at all costs. It's a last resort for me to recommend that to parents. How I know it's something that's needed is when we're in counseling for a while, we're trying every type of skill we can think of, and we just keep hitting the same wall. And that's our body, that's the medical side of our body saying, the coping skills can't work until we fix that medical side. So it's just like, think about someone with diabetes, with blood sugar up and down, needing insulin. You can do diet changes, you can exercise, you can have a healthier style of life, but you're still gonna need insulin. Otherwise, you're gonna have bigger episodes that you can't regulate on your own. And so medication is when we need to aid the brain in calming everything down so then the coping mechanisms can work. But we can't just rely on medication only. Anxiety becomes a habit. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of worrying. It's a way of processing the world. It's like a lens that we see the world through. And so if you're in the habit of worrying and obsessing over tests or over expectations or over what people think, then even if we're taking the medication and our brain is working as it should, our worry, our obsessions are going to cause anxiety. So it's a multi-sided factor. We have to hit the medical side as well as our habits. And in today's presentation, we're going to be talking about how to create healthier habits, how to foster this in our children right from the beginning. And then this video right here at the bottom is a link to a video that it's just basically what is anxiety, and I go into a lot more detail, the difference between anxiety and depression and different coping skills you can use. And so here's symptoms of anxiety. How anxiety is the same process in the body, whether you're an adult or a child, but how a child acts when they're anxious is different than how we act as adults. So on the left is the adult list, and on the right you can see it kind of changes a little based on the child. And one thing that's really interesting is the ADHD symptoms. What we would think as, okay, this child has ADHD, that child may have anxiety, because a child with anxiety is more impulsive, more hyperactive, doesn't focus, is bouncing around the room. That looks a lot like ADHD. They're also quick to become emotional. They're quick to melt down. They tend to want to isolate or go quiet. It's that kind of quiet where you can tell when you look at their face, there's a lot going on inside. It's like they're so busy in their thoughts, they're quiet to the rest of the world. They may start avoiding things such as homework or going to school. They may have stomach pains before going to school. The stomach is like an anxiety litmus test. A lot of people carry their anxiety in their stomach, and what's really interesting is they've been doing some more research lately, and they're able to prove that the muscles in the stomach that squeeze to push along the food or the matter inside, it flexes more when there's anxiety, and so it tends to cramp or flex when it's not supposed to, when we have higher levels of anxiety or stress, creating stomach pains, creating indigestion, different things like that. And so you can take a look at this list and kind of see how some of these things do overlap, but a child tends to be more emotional and reactive. And then I separate these into 4 different categories of what anxiety looks like in children. And I did a whole video series on this where each one of these is its own video. But body symptoms is that stomach ache, it's that shakiness, it's that nervous energy, it's that just feeling uncomfortable in your own skin. And one great tool with anxiety is becoming aware of those body symptoms so that we can read our body. I know I'm feeling anxious because I'm feeling that nervous energy in my fingers, or that tapping, or if you've ever noticed a cold sweat where you're cold, your fingers are cold or your toes are cold, but you're sweating. That's anxiety. Behavior changes where they digress in their development. Maybe they go down a few steps. They may isolate more. They may not play with their friends as much. They may avoid things they used to really love. So you're seeing any major changes in those behaviors. Increased need for control. And so when we're anxious, the more we can anticipate or control, the better we can regulate. And so this isn't saying we're control freaks. It's just I'm grabbing at any straw I can to kind of help me ground. in the situation. So children don't have much control over their life. The younger, the less they have, the older, the more they have. And so they try to control things that maybe they shouldn't control, like what they eat or what they wear or where they go, or they may melt down more when it's not a decision they would have wanted to make. And then acts of avoidance. You may see this by avoiding homework, school, friends, or it's even talking. They may not even want to talk about something because they don't trust their ability to regulate through it. And trust their ability to regulate or manage the emotion is really, really key. And we're going to talk about that a lot more. And here's the link to that video series. So I wanted to give you guys an image of what this looks like. So when it comes to, I use the terms upregulate, downregulate, or of losing, kind of that hyperactivity, that kind of losing control or shutting down. So this is a good visual for you. So the window of tolerance is what your child can emotionally and mentally handle. So if it's a small quiz and they have confidence that they're going to do okay, they may not go in either direction. They'll stay in their window of tolerance and they'll be okay. Or if you ask them to eat their vegetables and they kind of accept it and they eat their vegetables, there's no blow up, there's no shutdown. Hyperarousal is when they can't handle the stress situation that's being presented to them, and they upregulate by yelling, screaming, having a meltdown, getting really upset. Shutting down, hyperarousal, is when we kind of go more inward into our body. We become more quiet, we become that flat affect where they say nothing. Or this also is appeasing. This is saying what they need to say to get out of the situation. So sometimes when we're giving a consequence or giving a lecture and the child says exactly what we want to hear, they may be shut down. They're not really hearing, they're not really participating in this conversation. They're just checking the box of say what I need to say, so this will move on. So this is kind of a good visual of that as we continue to talk about this. So flipping your lid is a great concept created by Dan Siegel. He wrote the book Parenting from the Inside Out. A link to that book is in here as well. So if you think about the brain, the inner part of the brain is the regulatory part of the brain, the fight or flight, the impulsive side of our brain of go, 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 fight, 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 or run, 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 run away. The cortex up here is our thinking part of our brain, our planning part of our brain of I feel bad right now, and making this decision would not be a good decision, but doing this would be better. That's our prefrontal cortex, learning from examples, making a change, being really intentional. So if you think about the brain and our hand, this is the inner part of our brain, the reactive part of our brain that will react or shut down. And then this is the cortex. This is the thinking part of the brain of maybe I should make a different decision. When we're emotional, this is true for us as adults as well as our kids, we flip our lid. Our brain's ability to dictate what we do and how we react goes away. So this is why kids lose it. That's why they have emotional meltdown. That's why it's like no matter what we say, we can't calm them down. And so the real task here is to co-regulate with our child, is to take the child and help them calm this energy down so that their lid comes back online. And then we can have a conversation about what happened, why it happened, and what we can do differently next time. And we can actually learn from this situation and they can grow to be more of a responsible child. Here's a good visual of that. So you got the child who was just like, blah, having a meltdown. And instead of the lecture, instead of telling them right for wrong, we move in, we co-regulate, we help them calm down. Their little flame gets smaller and smaller until they're a sweet little child again. And when they're at that point, that's when we can start thinking it through. That's when we can start talking about it. And I wish this image was a little bit more clear, but this is the best I could do with that image of what happened, what was the situation, what triggered this, what made you upset? Well, Johnny called me a bad name and it really hurt my feelings. Oh, so Johnny called you a bad name and it hurt your feelings. Telling the story back to them helps them regulate. Think about when something happens to us that really is upsetting. The more we kind of share it with others, tell our story, the more we can process it and heal through it. That's the power of therapy. So kind of, well, what did you think when Johnny said that to you? How, what meaning did you give that? Well, Johnny just must think I'm really stupid. Oh man, if Johnny thinks you're stupid, that really does hurt, doesn't it? So now we're talking about our emotions. We're linking how we think to our emotions. Well, where does that hurt? Is it like your stomach's twisting? Is it like your chest hurts? Where do we feel it in our body? These are all different cues or ways of talking to our child about what happened. And then what did you do? So you hit Johnny. Well, it makes sense that you got your feelings hurt, and it makes sense that it did, you were upset that Johnny called you that, but hitting Johnny isn't the right answer. I wonder what else we can do. And when you're feeling upset like that, or when someone hurts your feelings. So we're kind of putting the whole picture together, painting it through with our child, so that they can then think through what I can do next time better, or how I can manage my emotion better. And by co-regulating with your child, you're teaching them how to manage that emotion. The younger they are, think about an infant, we have to pick them up and they need us to regulate. The older they are, the more they can do it on their own, but almost like they kind of touch us a little and go, okay, I'm okay. And then they can handle it. And so it kind of realizing that we play an active role in teaching our children how to manage this, and remembering that they're children and they're still learning how to manage this. They're not little adults yet. So anxiety resilience, to really define this is my definition of what anxiety resilience is. First, it starts with the understanding and acceptance that life is messy and stressful, and there's going to be anxiety in our life. We're not going to live a stress-free life. So it's first having that acceptance of stress will be there. And then having that resilience because we have a confidence in, I know how to handle that anxiety. I know how to handle stress. I may not see it coming. I may not know exactly what to do, but I know I'll be okay in my body. I know I can manage the emotion or the anxiety that may come with it. And so this is really this is more kind of a foundation of self-confidence of, I know I've got this. Rather than, and it creates a sense of hope, and rather than having to avoid a stress or pretend it's not there, I know I can face it, and I know I'll have more of an optimistic future of whatever comes my way, I know I can handle it. So this is really the foundation of self-esteem, and being able to control your own body. So let's talk about what increases anxiety, and what can make anxiety worse, what can exacerbate it. And so having priorities, having expectations of our children, very healthy, good things. However, if the expectations are higher than their age, if the priorities are what you hope your child to accomplish rather than helping them become the best version of themselves, sometimes our expectations and our priorities can actually manifest more anxiety, especially depending on the tone of voice we use when we're setting them or when we're talking about them. I'll give you two examples of, you didn't do that. You didn't get a B on your test, did you? You can kind of tell the tone of my voice, my energy in my body, how that's kind of more of a manipulative type statement. No, you didn't do that, did you? Kind of a statement versus, oh, well, what grade you get? How do you feel about getting a B? Do you feel you did the best you could? I wonder if we study a little bit more on this and that, maybe next time it'll be an A. So the goal is, of course, do the best you can, learn the best you can, grow to become the best version of yourself. But how we bring that to the table, how we talk about that really affects how the child's internalizing, I'm doing a good job, I'm capable, or there's no point even trying because I just will never do it right. Fear and anxiety are the most contagious affects. That's how the news makes a ton of money. They kind of stir up the pot of fear, get people really engaged. This hurricane that's about to move through is a great example of that. They've been talking about this hurricane before it was a hurricane, when it was a little blip on the map down in the middle of the ocean for the last week, and then just churning up everyone's energy. Now, for the people who need to leave, that's a good thing because they can take action and follow through, and they had a heads up. But for us up here, it's more about let's get ratings. And so, how is fear handled in your household? A good way to reflect on this is, how did your family handle COVID? COVID was pretty scary. There was a lot of unknowns at first. There was a lot of change all at once. But was there a lot of hope associated with the fear? Was there a plan? Was there ways to regulate and come together and connect as a family? What do your children overhear when they hear you talk about things you're worried about or things coming up that you fear? Fear also, a good way of thinking about it is it's a lot of what if thinking. What if this happens? What if that happens? Because there's a lot of unknown with fear. And then let's talk about how we talk about mistakes with our children. Mistakes we make, mistakes they make. Shame is language that we use of you are bad. What's wrong with you? You didn't do that, did you? I cannot believe you did that. That there's an insinuation of you as a person are bad. An internal thought is I'm just such an idiot or I'm such a failure. Why did I do that? The problem with shame is it shuts you down. You're now flooded with emotion and you're not thinking through, well, what decision can I make next time? You're just flooded in the emotion. You're more likely to not talk about it than you are to talk about it. On the other hand, guilt is, I made a C on that test. I should have studied more last night. We feel the weight of this wasn't a good decision. I didn't do my best. But there is a thought process of what can I do better next time? How can I learn from this? That's the big difference. And so when we're talking to our kids about their mistakes, this is something to be very careful with our language choice. And it's something we all have to catch ourselves on. I'm very guilty of this, of what's wrong with you? That's my favorite that I have to catch myself when I'm overwhelmed. Perfectionism is something to be really, really careful of because it's very tempting. Perfectionism looks really good. It makes good grades. It performs really well. But what's going on inside of your child when they're being a perfectionist is they're walking a tightrope and screaming on the inside while they look perfect on the outside. They're miserable. Nothing is good enough for them. They never feel calm. They never feel like it's enough. They're lost when they're in a perfectionistic place. It's like a coat of armor blocking. It's like an attempt to block themselves from any type of guilt or shame or any kind of emotional pain. But what it ends up doing, because we feel like it's protecting us, but what it ends up doing is it becomes a voice of never enough. And here's the thing that really is tough, is it becomes a block to personal growth. Because instead of who am I becoming, what am I learning about myself, how am I growing as a person, it's how do I look good, how do I look good, how do I look good, and shut everything else down. So they become emotionally stunted when they're fueled with perfectionism. Absence of free time. I don't know about you guys, but when every afternoon has something and every day on the weekend have something, I'm exhausted. I'm worn out. Your kids are too. We need time every night and every weekend to relax, to wind down. Children need time to play. We need to almost make relaxation a habit, something that is on the schedule. Also, children need to learn how to be bored. That's a really important skill, because if a child doesn't ever learn that and never learns how to be bored, when they become an older adolescent, when they go to college, they're going to constantly be filling themselves with stuff rather than just taking downtime. And so it'll teach them how to be a very anxious adult later. Also, when you've got a lot going on, a big test, a big paper, just knowing Saturday morning I can just rest. That's really nice to be able to look forward to downtime at the other side of something really stressful. For example, today, public speaking is a little overwhelming, right? And so this afternoon, I'm really excited because we decided we're going to go to Burt's this afternoon as a family. One of my favorite things to do is go get the pumpkins in fall, and I just love it, drinking pumpkin spice coffee right now. And so on the other side of something a little nerve-wracking, we get to go do something fun, and I get to kind of wind down from this nervous experience. So the real antidote to anxiety, to really bring anxiety down, is having that knowledge. So like I was talking about with resilience, it starts with just accepting and acknowledging that it's there. If we avoid and pretend it's not there, we never actually deal with it, and we just constantly stay like this, shaking inside. But with knowledge, it's a sense of anxiety is here. Okay, now what? Now what can I do to manage it? And then as parents, we can model, this is what we do to manage it. So for example, preparing for this presentation last night while I was preparing and practicing a little bit, my children were like, hey, can we go and do our normal routine of a bike walk that we do in the afternoon? And I was like, right now I'm really nervous. I have this big thing coming up. I'm going to talk in front of a lot of people. And I showed them the PowerPoint and how I'm working on it. And what I'm doing is I'm working really hard so I can feel really ready. And so I'm speaking out loud to what I'm going through and how I'm managing it so that they're seeing what I'm doing in turn. And they know, okay, when you're stressed out about something, you can work really hard and feel ready. And that's a way to feel more in control of the situation. Creating new family habits, making sure that downtime, relaxation time, together time is a part of your family routine, and you're really intentional about that. Make sure you're putting relaxation on the calendar. After a busy season, take a long weekend with your family to go do something fun, or be really intentional about this weekend, nothing will be scheduled. We're not going anywhere. We're not doing anything unless we want to. And so that way we can sometimes just catch our breath as a family together. And so anxiety reduction tools is something we teach in counseling, and you can teach your kids at home as well. We offer a whole series on anxiety reduction tools on the website or on our YouTube channel. Tense to Relax is one of my favorite ones to teach children. The technical name to this is progressive muscle relaxation, but try to tell that to a 5-year-old, right? So Tense to Relax is you take different muscle groups, like we'll use our arms for an example, you squeeze them tight, flex all your muscles for 10 seconds. And we, even with kids, I like even, we try to make it kind of fun. And then we let it go. And then we take a deep breath and then let that go. And then maybe do a different, maybe our legs, then we do our face, and then we do our shoulders, and then we do our stomach. And we move through the body, tensing out, getting out the anxious energy, because think about how energy is held in our body when we're anxious. If we squeeze and let go, we're now calm. And we kind of move out that energy. Triangle breathing, whether you do a count of 3, 4, or 5, you breathe in for 3, hold for 3, and out for 3. And so it's teaching our body to slow down our breath. Our breath, our heart rate, and our blood pressure are all intertwined. You slow down one down, you slow the other 2. You speed one up, you speed up the other 2. And so we can take back our heart rate and our blood pressure by doing triangle breathing. Next time you go to the doctor and they put one of those fun little gizmos on your fingers to test your O2 levels and your heart rate, when they first put it on, look at your heart rate on the monitor and then take a deep breath, and you'll physically watch that number drop. It's amazing how quick it happens. Visualization, this is a really great tool for taking tests or writing papers. Visualize yourself walking into the school, feeling confident, feeling ready, sitting down at your desk, holding your pencil, seeing the first question, knowing the answer, feeling I can do this. So you're kind of teaching your child to walk them through what's going to happen, but in a confident, I can do this kind of way. And then that's more likely to become true. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 body grounding. 5 things we see, 4 things we hear, 3 things we feel, 2 things we smell, and 1 thing we taste. It's all the 5 senses, but instead of staying stuck in our head of ruminating thoughts or obsessive thinking, we're now focusing on our body. We're now focusing on our surroundings, and it helps us to ground. So this is a great tool to teach your children to do anywhere, because they can do it silently in their head when they're feeling a little overwhelmed or they're feeling really kind of maybe lost in class. And then guided imagery is a great tool. It's like meditation, but for a busy brain. I know me, I have a busy brain. And so guided imagery can kind of help guide you and with a coping skill, or with kind of a beautiful place, walking you through walking on the beach and feeling the sand on your toes. And so it gives you something really nice and calming to think about so that you're can calm yourself down. And so here are some examples of some of the tools we have on the YouTube channel. Emotional expression. So this is something to start really, really young with your children, of teaching them to have an emotional outlet. play is a natural emotional outlet for children, whether it's active play with swords and running around the yard, or it's playing with dolls in the dollhouse, or it's painting. I intentionally picked this picture because this child here is not painting a picture of a house and a tree and all that. They're just putting color on there and they're just having a great time. Color is very reflective of different emotions. Think about red for love or red for anger. Think about blue for sad or blue for calm. So different variations of the color can mean different things, but color has a real close tie to our emotion. And so just giving them the chance to blah on paper, and the more they can touch the medium, the more in it they are. So like color or pastels that get all over your hands, or painting all over the place. I know it's messy, versus pen, which you're really removed from. You're not touching it at all. So the more they're in it, the more they're feeling it too. And so this is the opposite of TV. TV is shutting down, not feeling your body and feeling the emotion of what the people are doing on TV. It's a type of dissociation. In healthy amounts, it's fine, but this isn't the best way to calm down and cope. If we are good at feeling our emotions, if we feel confident, I can handle this in my emotions, we stay in control and our emotions don't control us. And right from the beginning, we can give our children opportunities to do this at home. Mindfulness. Now, I am not asking you guys to fold your legs together in the living room every day for 30 minutes and meditate. Mindfulness can be an everyday practice and everyday life that we just incorporate in a really fun way. There's a great book called Growing Up Mindful. It's one of those books where you don't actually have to read a lot, which I like. I don't have a whole lot of time for reading. I don't know about you guys, but with two young ones, my plate's full. Each page is a different fun activity you can do with your kids. So instead of on the way home, my son gets in the car and he's just had a tough day at school. And so instead of me just kind of barking at him because he's acting frustrating, it's, hey, buddy, give yourself a butterfly hug. And then let it go. And then squeeze again and let it go. And this is something I taught him really, really young. And so now as a 9-year-old, he's like, okay, fine. And it kind of gives him a way of grounding. Or the kids are being really rowdy and loud and impulsive in the living room, just causing a ruckus. Instead of walking in there and stop it, it could be, let's play a game. Let's throw some pillows on the floor and let's jump on a pillow and balance and take a deep breath and then jump to the next pillow and balance. And so they're working on grounding their body. They're working on jumping just so far. They have to control themselves. They're taking deep breaths. And so we're playing a game that feels a lot of fun, and we're calming down and we're grounding and we're turning down the chaos that they're and what's really great about this is you're teaching them how to innately regulate. So when we're upset, we're emotional, we're flooded, we're angry, we're sad, the last thing we're thinking about is, what coping skills should I use in this situation? We're flooded, we're upset. We need to learn how to almost like catch ourselves and sigh with a deep breath. That's why we sigh. It's a natural deep breath. So in play therapy, when I'm teaching children this, I'm teaching them how to innately move to coping mechanisms by making it fun and playful, so that they naturally or roll their shoulders, and they're naturally calming themselves down, and they know how to do this without having to think too hard. The best way to calm down and regulate is connection. 30 seconds of skin-to-skin touch with another person lowers our heart rate, blood pressure, and breathing rate. Think about a baby who's crying in their crib. Pick them up, and they calm down. We're all just big babies. We have the same brain. We just have a bigger prefrontal cortex now. And so leaning in and co-regulating your child, at the younger they are, the more they need you to co-regulate. The older they are, the more it'll be just a touch and go. And so, but knowing that it's my responsibility to teach my children how to manage this, rather than just expecting them to and putting them in trouble if they don't. This is how we communicate, having more kind of an empathetic and compassionate voice of, I can see how upset you are, rather than, how dare you be so mad? I can see how upset you are. Do you need to sit down for a second and let's talk about it? And then, and you can't hit your sister when you're upset. So it's co-regulate first, then we talk, and then we set the boundaries. Values and morality is also a big piece of this, and we know why we do what we do. We know what's right and we know what's wrong. Creating that moral compass, it creates clarity. It creates takes away confusion, and there's a sense of like internal pride of I'm proud of who my family is and who I am, and what matters to us. Of course, within flexibility, because we can be really tough on this too, but it's that this is who we are as a family, and we're kind as a family. And so when we're mad at each other, we still use kindness. And so it's whatever those core values are of your family, it's really kind of honoring that and being very outspoken about that, so that there's a clear sense of, I know why this is important, and I know why I'm in trouble if I don't do it. Okay, so let's talk about your role as parents in this. And so a series that's coming out right now, Priorities in Parenting came out last week, Disciplines coming out this week on Thursday, and Characters the week after that. This is the first video of the series, and so if you subscribe to the channel, you can see the videos as they come out. But thinking about priorities is your priorities based on who you vision your children to be and what you want them to become, or who you kind of helping them develop the best version of themselves? An example of it is, I really want my child to be outgoing and have lots of friends and be very successful. What if they're an introvert? What if they're going to have two really good friends and they're going to be a computer nerd, but they're going to be successful, but that's their path, and it's going to be a little different than maybe what you visioned, or vice versa. You're a very kind of to yourselves kind of family, more of an introverted family, and you have a social butterfly as a child who wants to go out and play with friends all the time. What your vision for their life may a little bit different than what is the best version of their life, what will bring out the best in them. And getting those conflicting messages kind of will create a, what's wrong with me? Why can't I be more social? Or what's wrong with me? Why do I want to be so social if the messages are mixed? And then discipline, we've talked about this a little bit already, of making sure, guilt versus shaming statements. What's the intention? What are you teaching them? Co-regulating with them first. And then character, fostering that morality and that sense of why in your family, and how that's so foundational to building self-esteem and a sense of self-reliance if I know how to handle this. And then managing your own anxiety. I just love this picture because this cat is not having a good day. And if we're honest with ourselves, we don't have good days. We have anxiety. We are dealing with a lot of stress, and we're managing a lot. And if we're stressed and not dealing with it, everyone else is picking up on that stress around us. Our children are like a little emotional sponges. They can tell if we're upset. They can tell if we're stressed. We've got to put on our own mask on the plane before we can put on anyone else's. And so making sure you're doing what you need to take care of yourselves. Are you giving yourself a break? Sometimes self-care is saying no. Are you giving yourself downtime on the weekend? Are you getting your favorite latte every once in a while to help kind of like, I can do this? And then does anxiety run in the family? Is it hereditary? Because if it is, it's more you have to put more intention in teaching your children skills early on, so they're that much more equipped as their anxiety grows. As the brain develops, the anxiety will grow. And our brain doesn't stop developing until about 25, 26 now is what the research is saying. So that's why adolescents don't make the best choices all the time. There's still a lot of brain growth to go. And then modeling about this. We talked about this already, but identifying your own emotion, age appropriate, and teaching them like how you're handling it. So if you're driving, someone cuts you off, deep breath. Mommy could get really mad at this and say some ugly words, but instead I'm just gonna shake it off so it doesn't ruin the rest of my day. They're listening in the back of the car. They're seeing that happen and they're learning from you. Versus if you do lose it, you're teaching them a lot by doing that too. Now, I'm not asking you to be perfect, because again, we know what perfectionism does, but just do the best you can. If we do lose it, that really wasn't the best decision Mommy made. I'm sorry, guys. I really need to take a big deep breath later. All right, later, catch yourself and apologize. And then this is what I should have done. That is just as important, because it teaches them we don't have to be perfect, but we can still make it right. And then knowing your why and communicating that. The more clarity we have with why we do things and why things are important, the more their child can take your lead. And so the because I said so actually fosters a lot of anxiety, because there's that, well, I don't know why, I'm not supposed to do this. And then that creates almost like a defiance of, well, I'll show you because you said so. I'll show you how I have power over my own body. But if it's a sit down, this is why this is important to us as a family, and this is how we want to treat each other, and how it feels good when someone's kind to you, and having that kind of conversation of really talking about the morality of it and the why behind it, they can kind of go, okay, yeah, I can see, and so they can get more on board. There's more buy-in there. And what's really neat is the word discipline in the Greek original word means to teach. So it's really, what are we teaching our children? With how we give them consequences or how we redirect them. And so here's the reality. Your child will face stress. They will have anxiety. They will face challenges. I pose this picture because it's kind of a worst case scenario, but it's going to happen. Life's going to happen, right? And so we don't want to prevent their growth by fixing it for them. But we also want to encourage them to learn how to do it on their own. So obviously, whoever this is teaching this baby how to swim, which, I commend them for that. But I didn't even get my kids near a pool without me when I was around. But it's all about balance. And this concept is called scaffolding, where you kind of lift them up as much as they need you, but you step back when they don't need you. So thinking about a kiddo with ADHD, and they're very disorganized with their homework and their papers, if you pack their book bag for them every night all the way through high school, they never learn that skill. But if at first, when they're in kindergarten, you pack it for them, and then in first grade, you kind of show them how to pack it, and then in second grade, you remind them, don't forget your homework, your binder, and and your water bottle, and then you start just to remind them, don't forget all the things you need. And so you're slowly stepping back, giving them the skills they need, and then slowly stepping back, letting them take over more and more and more over time, but with still you there I'm making sure everything's okay. So they know I've got the foundation of my parents are here, but they also have faith in me to let me try, to let me mess up, to let me fall. Because that's really important. That's a big foundation of trust, of do you trust me to try this and make a mistake? Because they're gonna make a lot of mistakes. Can you let them within reason? And then here is all the book and video links that I talked about today, of the different videos you can watch. And if you just click on this link, it'll take you right to it. And then these are the different books that I mentioned today. No Drama Discipline by Dan Siegel. This one I forgot to mention, Gifts of Imperfect Parenting. I meant to talk about this one on the perfection slide. It's anything by Brene Brown is just wonderful. And she did a whole imperfection series. And then she's added to that with about how to kind of manage your own thought process with how you're parenting, and then how to incorporate that into helping them not have perfectionism in their life. And then Growing Up Mindful, the different skills, and then polyvagal exercises. I actually have that here. So if your child has a lot of anxiety, this book is really great for deeper, more intense regulation skills to kind of help them get to that window of tolerance. And then this is the Parenting from the Inside Out. It's another one of Dan Siegel's books. This one is How You Were Parented. So how are you parenting? And then No Drama Discipline is how to kind of take a tough situation and turning it into a learning moment. And then these are the different YouTube videos that I mentioned earlier. So I'm happy to take questions. And again, anyone who sent me the email address, I'm going to take those email addresses and share this with you, so you will have a copy of this. I need to get out of full screen. And we can go ahead and stop the video so that the video recording doesn't have the questions. Okay, now I'm in here.
I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay. And then if anyone wants to